Pastor Brandon. Welcome to another segment of In the Basement. Hopefully bringing you relevant issues that we don't talk about in the church that we need to bring to our church community and our community as a whole. Today, our topic is millennial expectations of ministry. A lot of times we have millennials that are coming to the church and haven't been in church all my life. I've seen a lot of churches and pastors who say, we need to get the millennials in the church. They ain't coming no more. But yet and still we don't have any effective programming and don't adapt to make it a welcoming place. So today I want to have two of my special guests, both Darrell and Lance. We're going to talk about what it means to be a millennial, someone for y'all wondering 36, 37-ish or under, who are coming to church, wanting to grow in God, but have a new expectation for what church should be. Not just that place that you have to go to, but the place that you want to go to. So tune in for the next half an hour. We're going to try to explore this topic of what millennials are expecting and what we as the church need to be doing to adapt. So with that, Darrell, Lance, thanks for coming out. Our goal today is just to have a real conversation about church. I know both of your walks that I want you to be able to tell our viewers, how did you grow up? Did you grow up in church? And kind of what brought you to your journey today? So let's start with you, Darrell. Did you grow up in church? Is church new to you today? Tell us about yourself.
No, I grew up in church. My pastor, he actually had his own church. So me and some of my other family, my cousin, aunties, we all just went to that one church till I was about around maybe 13 years old. We kind of got out of that, started going to a non-denomination church. Still not really sure why, but I think I got it figured out. But
there are some issues that happened that caused y'all to walk away.
Yeah. So we started going to the non-denomination church. Then from there, went to college. Kind of didn't go to church because I had a hard time finding one, especially with being an athlete and finding the time to go to church. Most of the church services were during the time where we had practice and different things like that. So, yeah, but I'm back. I'm here. So.
Okay. Well, good. Welcome. Lance, tell us about your journey.
I grew up, my mom, she would go to church, here and so often on Sundays, but my dad never went, so he always stayed home. Sometimes me and my brother would tag along with my mom. But then it got to a point where it's like, if she went, we went, but there was never really any consistent, pattern throughout my childhood of going to church. Definitely on Easter, maybe some, holiday, if you will, but
Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day.
Not even Christmas or Mother's Day, just pretty much Easter. This is the Easter family that came to church. But we look good, though, because we always have nice suits. But, and then going through high school, I never went to church, and then through college, I never went to church. But even though I never went to church, I still felt like I was definitely a Christian. I felt like, I felt spiritual to a sense. I felt like I was, getting out here doing stuff, but just never in a physical church until actually I graduated college and I had more time and I was able to actually get more involved and then find my path. So I'm still trying to figure out my way, but yeah.
Got you. So both of you are new in your career.
Yes.
Last, 3 years or so. Tell our watchers what you do and what's your aspiration.
Recently graduated from the University of Toledo in fall of 2017 with an information technology degree. Currently right now, I work at Owens Corning as an IT project manager that kind of specializing in our CRM space, which is pretty cool. So, that's kind of what I do now.
Got you. What about you there?
I graduated from BG with my bachelor's and my master's degree.
Hopefully I had no issues today. We got UT, we got BG.
No, I can't have any issues. I'm currently actually a doctoral student at Toledo in educational psychology. That is pretty hard going on campus.
It's a better campus for it.
With those being our rivals and all. But I'm an academic advisor at BG right now. I do have aspirations of being a college president. So,
okay.
So right now, just enjoying that journey, bro.
So you're both new in your career. You both are at a point where you're trying to grow in God. What about your friends? People that you are, in your circles. What do you hear from them? I mean, hopefully, you being a member of the greatest church in Toledo, that you're evangelizing and trying to get them to church. Do you find resistance? Is your group saying, I really don't fool with church because ABC. And if it is, what is that?
I think it's kind of funny. Going to UT, we always had the Jehovah Witness that would sit outside of the same restaurant or the same corner, the same convenience store on campus. And ever since I can remember, for like the past 10 years, they've always been there. You walk by them in the hall, they always passing out their papers, and people just act like they really don't see them. After I started getting involved in church and going and realizing, like, hey, trying to ask people, hey, what you doing on a Sunday? It's not like you trying to ask somebody on a date. But when you start asking, like, hey, at least for me, trying to ask some people to go to church, I can tell it goes in one ear or out the other. And low key is kind of like, you don't even always kind of want to ask. And in the back of my mind, I just sit back and I think about, the Jehovah Witness that I always was seeing it, just the energy that they got, like, no one really cared. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's kind of, for me, I asked somebody today. Look at that. I asked somebody today, did they want to go to church? And at that point, I'm like, I'm not trying to come off all pushy and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things where, everybody has to find their way. It took me 26 years to find my way. And the worst thing you can do is just ask. And it's kind of one of those things. But, yeah.
Definitely. What about you, Darrell? What do you see?
I think for me, my main core friends, we're pretty well-rounded in the church. We constantly have different conversations about church. Whatever our church service topic was that day, and we talk about it pretty much every Sunday. I do find resistance in some of my friends. Not really sure why. They don't really explain why. And I don't really dig too deep into it because sometimes I don't really know how to go about that, So I kind of just leave it there and, maybe I'll come back to it at a later date. So.
Well, y'all both, are in Toledo, that live here or around the same area. So y'all have seen that he has some issues here with some pastors. And, there's some people that are currently either about to or are serving time because of some issues that they had, some struggles that they had, some things that the community as a whole is not happy about. And, of course, we're not going to devote time on the show to go into detail. However, we know what it is. How do you think those type of issues affect our generation's view of the church? Because, I was always taught that, the pastor is holy and they don't do no wrong. And I always have tried as a preacher, now a pastor, to say, okay, I don't want to ever be seen as this perfect person. Because when you fall, then you're seen as really just the enemy, and that, you really were being fake. So, you hear about these issues going on. How do you think that affects our view of the church? Or does it not change? Do people just say, you know what, hey, people can mess up. It's okay.
Personally, I don't think I think it was something to talk about, at the time. I think, everybody wants to be a part of the conversation, but I don't think people care because I don't think people care beforehand. I think people want to tweet Bible. People want to get Bible verses tatted. People want to tweet, Bible quotes and everything else like that. But when it comes to actually just like being about what you talk about, a lot of people don't show up. And I think that's something that, I've noticed personally, but definitely I heard a lot of people talk about it, this, that, and the third, but no one cared to begin with. It was just something to talk about in the heat of the moment. And it's kind of disheartening, but at the same time, I understand it because not too long ago, I was one of those people just going about life and everything else. So I try not to judge. I understand, at least for me personally.
Yeah. What's your?
I don't really think it had a negative impact, or it could have. And I feel like I can only speak for myself when it comes to this. My church is back at home in Florida. I've heard stories like this before. So I kind of learned a long time ago to, never really put my trust to man. Because they're human just like us. They mess up and they do different things. So I don't know. It really didn't bother me. What happened bothered me, of course.
For sure.
But just having a negative impact on church and different things, not so much.
So, we oftentimes talk about what a pastor should be. And, of course, we saw some examples of pastors that truly fell from grace in terms of, doing the will of God. When you see pastors now, of course, your pastor, or pastors how, what do you put them, what are your expectations of them? I hear all the time, is it okay for a pastor to go out to Door Street Cafe or to Evolution to have their chicken wings?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's your expectation of a pastor?
I think my expectations is that you're yourself, that you're a leader, and that you put the church and the people in your congregation, not saying necessarily before yourself, but at least having them in mind when you're out here, because at the end of the day, we're all human. Nobody is perfect, not even your pastor. So you can't sit here and expect pastors won't make mistakes. But it's when you do make mistakes, how do you go about, letting people know? How do you go about handling that? And personally, I haven't had any bad experiences with any pastors or anything else like to sit back and be like, hey, what are you doing? But I think that the biggest thing, you just look for someone who's a leader, someone who speaks and other people can see them as a leader, can surround them, and can at least give you a state of mind where it's like, wow, you actually had me thinking in a way that I wasn't thinking before. And I think that's really, what I'm looking at. And a lot of times, I think you shouldn't even meet pastors with the title pastor. I think it's nice just to meet them before you even know they're a pastor. So that way you can really get a good gauge of them, because sometimes people throw that title around and then you want to act off. It gets kind of funny acting, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. What you do?
I think it's pretty much just like anything in this world. I mean, you have a brand that you have to protect. So you should go about that just like you do anything else, right? And I also feel like you should be a leader to your congregation. Just leading by example. I never really thought about any expectations for a pastor. It's actually until I started going to the TC. I feel like now I'm actually in a place where I can grow in my spiritual growth, and I feel like before that I didn't really have that. And I'm not really blaming the pastor, but yeah.
But I do want to say something I didn't add. I do think ethics matter from a pastor's standpoint.
Definitely.
Ethics is a big thing for me, because if you don't operate with any ethics, how can I sit back and follow you or take you serious? I don't know why, but I have a hard time trusting pastors that are on TV at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I don't know why.
This may be on at 3 in the morning. Hold on.
Do you feel like that is social media? Because I feel like I never really thought about that until that came about on social media. I started seeing that a lot more.
I guess when I have in my Joel Osteen, I don't know, people that fit into that Joel Osteen, that mega church, and we just out here, we have all of this stuff. I was reading an article the other day about some mega churches having their pastors getting private jets, this, that, and the third. And it's just like, to me, it's like, no, I don't expect my pastor to be, on welfare, to not have any money, not enough money to go out and do nice things for his family. I don't expect that. But at the same time, like, that whole piece can kind of be like, whoa, what's going on?
So let's stay there for a minute. So, you say Joel Osteen or mega churches. There's a few mega churches in Toledo, that we know of. What do you define as too much? Because the word declares that we should be able to go out to evangelize, to win souls for Christ, and do ministry. And when you have more, whether it be people or resources, you can do more. So talk to me about, when is too much too much?
Personally, I'm turned off. When I see, Cedar Creek, I'm pretty sure they do a lot of good things and everything else like that. But me, I'm turned off when I see all these different Cedar Creeks and all these different spots. The one thing I do like about TC is the fact that it is a little bit, smaller, and you can grow with it. I think me, from a millennial standpoint, I don't want to just go to a church where I feel like it's all this stuff going on, all these different dynamics at play. Like, I want to go to a place where I feel like it's organic and it's real. And a lot of times you go to a church, it's kind of hard to decipher, like, who's really here for the right purpose. And it sounds kind of messed up. You should be in church for yourself. But sometimes I'll sit back and feel like, nah, the vibe isn't right. And the one thing I really like about TC, and the reason why I joined it, and I was having a conversation with somebody, is like, we go to, we're at Jones Academy. We sit back, we're doing a scholarship. We're in the gym, not in the gym, in the room, the lunchroom. And even though we might be in that setting, I have taken way more from being in that setting than I have sitting in a traditional pew since I can remember. Yeah. So for me, the people that I can connect with, the fact that, I didn't just meet my pastor out on the street. He told me he was a pastor, come follow me and get the word. You know what I mean? Actually having a real relationship. And I think that's really what it's about. And I think sometimes that part, the human element of it, is kind of glanced over.
That's real.
Yeah, I think it's. I think for me, when I was attending mega churches, I was just losing interest, and I feel like I got to a point where I was just in church, just there. I wasn't taking anything in, and it's kind of funny because right before I actually met you, I think we had that boy. I think it was Stephanie's birthday.
Stephanie's birthday, yeah.
And then Jerry told me, and I met you and everything. I said I would come check out the church, but like a couple of weeks before that, I was praying that I found a church, something like TC where I could actually grow, because I felt like I wasn't making any progress in my spiritual life attending that mega church. And like you said, I do definitely feel like I'm growing since I've been at TC. I feel like you do a lot with helping like that. I feel like you're a great example, or our church is just a great example of what we should be doing out in the community and doing different things like that. So.
I think that, when we started Transformation Church, we talked about it, before with our congregation, it was to be a different ministry in Toledo. There's a lot of churches. Holy Toledo is what they call it. It's a church on every corner. But a lot of our churches, and I know some that might be watching this segment, we're not doing ministry. We're doing church. We're coming, walking through the motions, and people's lives are not being changed. And to me, I think that that's important, that you come to church, have a good word, have a good worship experience, make those connections and get to grow both spiritually and personally, but you gotta also have that impact out in the community. You said something earlier about, the impact and seeing, of course, a big church, but not really having the same level of impact. If you had a silver bullet or a magic wand, what would be the one thing that you say church should be? If there was only one thing out of all the things that churches can be, what would that one thing be? What do you think church should be?
I think just somewhere where I feel comfortable and able to grow, like in my spiritual life. Like I said, I wasn't comfortable at the church I was at before, and I wasn't growing. In a place where I also feel like I'm not being judged. I feel like being in those Southern Baptist churches, you gotta, with your family and different things like that, and you just feel like you're being judged a lot. Judged with how far you, I guess, grown spiritually, what you do in your outside life, and it's like they're looking down on you like they're better than you, and that's what I did not like.
I have a quick anecdote to tell. I was walking down the street from my house off Lewis, I believe, and it was I was passing this church, and two women stopped me and said, "Hey, do you know about the Word of God and all that?" And I'm like, "Yes, and I belong to a church." I name dropped my church. I'm like, "No, you ain't gonna try to check my church card. Like, I'm here. I'm in there." And even then, I told them, like, "Hey, I'm going to TC. I'm doing this and the third." It was like they still want me to prove my worthiness or prove like I'm just sitting here like, "Ma'am, I'm not perfect. I'm a young brother just trying to get it out." But how many times you even ask the question if someone even has anything to say back to you? And I think that's one of those things that kind of turned me off to that traditional sense, because it's like, I think a church should be yours. Yeah. And a lot of times when you go to these bigger churches, some of these more established churches, people have their same pew. People have been going there for years and all that. You don't feel like it's yours. You feel like you're just a transient. Like you're just here just to give it, give you a little tithe, pay a little money, and then go back home. But when I go to TC, I feel like it's mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I told that lady, like, "What you mean you don't know about," you know what I'm saying? Like, it felt like it was mine. And I think having that ownership, it matters. And when you have that type of energy and that type of leadership, you have someone like me. I just got done playing basketball 30 minutes ago, but you say, "Hey, let's do something. Let's put this together." And I say, "I don't care. I'm here." And I think that's a testament. That's a testimony to what type of environment I feel like is fostering, at least at TC.
Gotcha. Y'all both talked about judgment. We shouldn't judge in the church, but a lot of times we do. And I think that there's a lot of people who are saying, "Nah, you know what, I'm cool, because I want to be able to come to church and have on what I have on, and not worry about." I don't think you should come to church in pajamas, but to not be so concerned about how you look, but be more concerned about what you're going to gain while you're there. And I think that the judgment is key. Judgment is key, and I think a lot of times our churches miss that mark. They miss that mark. Some closing thoughts. So, we talked about, how you have both grown and where you're at in your spiritual walk, your professional walk. We talked about how church, your expectations of a pastor, and how you feel, you're growing where you're at right now. When you think about church and think about how you get more of us there, what do you think it takes? I know that, of course, building you up so that you can answer those tough questions when you say, hey, come to church, and they say, okay, why? Or, what does your church believe in? So you take that out of the equation. Say you're built up, you're ready, you got your little pamphlet, and you can, answer any question. What else do you think it takes to get more millennials in the church? If you had to tell every pastor in Toledo, every deacon in Toledo, this is what you should be doing in order to grow your church and have more of us in there, what would that be?
I mean, again, like I had a conversation with my friend like right before I got here, and one of the things that I definitely mentioned was just the environment of where we are and being able to feel comfortable. I feel like I'm around individuals kind of around the same age as me. There's a couple individuals in the church that are older, but I feel like we're all on like this journey together. And we're not where we want to be, but I mean, I feel like we're going there together. We're going to get there together, and we're helping each other out along that journey. So,
what you ask?
Honestly, I'm not being negative, but I think it's bleak. The reason why I say it's bleak is because just knowing how I came from that other side, where really every day I'm mindlessly going every day, and now that I'm low-key a little bit more aware, I got my antennas up, and I look back to where I came from, it's like, it's a lot of people that are just, they just sleep and they just don't care. And it might sound crazy, but it's like, what do you do to get somebody to really care? Like, you can't take over people's lives and be them for them. I think the biggest thing that you can do is just try and prop up people that are, going to get to work, people that are in that space. And hopefully people see what God is doing for them and really highlighting those stories. Don't make them fake. Don't say, hey, I prayed to God that I can get $1 million and here I am, I done came up. Like, no, I don't. That's not gonna move people. But I think seeing everyday people, young folks. Let's say you're a young professional, you just started working. You know what I'm saying? Like having programs to help bring those people in, utilizing social media, and not just doing it just to do it, but having the clear and the driven focus. I think you need to have some marketing. I think church needs to really take a step back and look at it from a business standpoint. Like, how are we marketing ourselves? How are we selling ourselves? And what is the platform that we're trying to put out there? And I think if you take a step back and you look at that, maybe you can gain some traction. But I think just to keep doing the same old thing that you're constantly doing or just being okay with the status quo isn't going to really cause much of a change.
I think it's also important to understand that everyone's not ready at that time, and they'll come when they're ready, whenever that time may be. I think about myself, like I said, I grew up in the church. I think, and when you're younger, you kind of forced to go, right? And then it kind of like...
You better not be in that house on Sunday morning. You better get up and go to church.
And it's almost like a turnoff. And I don't mean that like in a negative way, but I mean that's just kind of how it is. And then when you get older, you just find your way. Like you go through things in life, and you understand that you can't do it alone. And you get back into church, and you just start living the right way, you start getting closer to God, you start growing, and then it's just like things just take off from there.
So what I've heard today is that, for one, church shouldn't be a place of judgment. Church has to be a place that is welcoming, and you feel and no matter what age you are, that is not the pew that's owned by so-and-so, but that anybody can come in and grow. Yes. But then also we have to change our focus and market, which I think is key at showing the community and people on social media that are scrolling, constantly looking at stuff, that, wow, that's a place I maybe need to be at on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Free of judgment, open for me to grow, and a place where I feel like I'm a part and that I'm connected to. This has been a great time. I'm grateful for both of y'all, for y'all insight, and my hope is that something that we share today can impact our community, can cause churches, can cause ministries to hear what's been said and to wake up. I think that Toledo needs an awakening. We got a lot of young people, millennials, and even younger than millennials, Generation Y, that needs God, but it can't be done the same way. We can't expect the same results or do the same thing and expect new results. We have to do something different. I'm glad you were tuning in with us. Be on the lookout for our next In the Basement. What it's going to be about? I'm single and I'm saved. We're going to explore the conversation around what it means to be a Christian, someone that loves God, but still likes to have fun. I got some great guests lined up for that. Make sure that you watch it. Thank you for watching today. Thank you, Darrell. Thank you, Lance, for your time. And we'll see you next time.